Isaiah Washington stood stunned in the first-class cabin as flight attendant Rebecca Morris was escorted off the plane, her accusations echoing while passengers recorded everything. The CEO clutched a company letter evidence that had dramatically changed everything moments earlier. Before we dive into this shocking story of discrimination, at 30000 feet, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from. Hit that like button and subscribe to hear more true stories about standing up against injustice. Now let's rewind to see how this explosive situation unfolded. The morning sun streamed through the blinds of Isaiah Washington's penthouse apartment in downtown Atlanta. At 42, the CEO of Meditech Innovations had built his company from a small startup in his garage to a multi-million-dollar enterprise specializing in affordable medical technology for underserved communities. Today could be the culmination of years of hard work and sacrifice. Isaiah straightened his burgundy tie in the mirror, examining his reflection with critical eyes. The custom-tailored Navy suit had cost him $3,000, a rare splurge for a man who typically invested every spare dollar back into his business. But today's meeting with Harper & Blackwell, Boston's premier investment firm, demanded nothing less than perfection. If successful, their backing would take his company public with a valuation exceeding $500 million. This isn't just about you anymore, Isaiah reminded himself, adjusting his gold cufflinks, a gift from his late father, who had worked 3 jobs to put him through college. The weight of expectation from his family, his 200 employees, and the communities that would benefit from their medical devices rested heavily on his shoulders. His phone buzzed with an incoming call from Zoe Hayes, his executive assistant for the past 5 years. "Morning, Zoe. I'm just about ready," Isaiah answered, placing the call on speaker as he gathered his presentation materials. "Good morning. Just confirming you have the prototype secured in your carry-on. The team triple-checked the calibrations last night." Zoe's efficient voice filled the room. "Yes, it's packed safely. How's our presentation looking?" "Polished and perfect. I've sent a digital copy to your email and uploaded a backup to the cloud. The Harper & Blackwell team confirmed they're expecting you at 3 p.m. Your return flight is booked for 8 p.m., though I've identified alternatives if you need to stay overnight." Isaiah smiled at Zoe's thoroughness. As a black woman in the corporate world, she understood the unspoken rule they both lived by: to be twice as prepared, twice as professional, and twice as perfect, just to be considered equal. "Thanks, Zoe. Anything else I should know about Harper & Blackwell?" "Actually, yes. I did some digging. They've never invested in a black-owned medical technology company before. You'd be the first." The weight of those words hung in the air. Isaiah nodded silently, even though Zoe couldn't see him. It wasn't surprising information, but it was another reminder of the barriers he constantly faced. "Well then, we'll have to make history today, won't we?" he finally responded, injecting confidence into his voice. Before ending the call, he arranged a final video conference with his executive team, Chief Medical Officer Dr. Alana Wright, Chief Technology Officer Devin Harris, and Chief Financial Officer Martin Kepler appeared on his screen, each bringing updates from their departments. The clinical trial results for the portable dialysis unit have exceeded expectations, Dr. Wright reported. "We're seeing a 92% efficiency rate with minimal side effects." "That's excellent, Alana. Harper & Blackwell will be impressed by those numbers." Isaiah nodded, making a mental note to highlight this in his presentation. "The patent office has approved our final application," Devin added. "We now have comprehensive protection for all 5 core technologies." Martin, ever the pragmatist, concluded with financial projections. "If we secure this investment and go public by Q3, we're looking at being able to reduce manufacturing costs by 40%. That means more units in more clinics in underserved areas." Isaiah felt a surge of pride, looking at his diverse executive team professionals who had chosen to work with his company, despite offers from bigger corporations with more established reputations. they believed in the mission creating affordable medical technology to address healthcare disparities. Thank you all. Today could change everything for Meditech, Isaiah said. Next time we speak, we might be preparing for our IPO. After ending the call, Isaiah carefully checked the prototype in his carry-on, a revolutionary portable dialysis device the size of a laptop that could operate without hospital-grade electrical systems. It would bring life-saving treatment to rural communities in developing countries where traditional dialysis was inaccessible. This wasn't just a business opportunity, it was his purpose. As the executive car arrived to take him to Atlanta International Airport, Isaiah mentally rehearsed his presentation. 20 years ago, he had been a scholarship kid from the south side of Atlanta with big dreams. Today, he was one of the few black CEOs in medical technology still fighting to prove he belonged in rooms where decisions were made. The city skyline receded in the rearview mirror as he headed toward what could be the most important meeting of his life, unaware of the confrontation awaiting him before he even left Georgia. The executive car pulled up to Atlanta International's departures terminal at precisely 9:30 a.m. Isaiah checked his watch, a habit formed from years of ensuring he was always early for every meeting, flight, and appointment. In his experience, being late as a black executive invited judgments that his white counterparts rarely faced. "Have a good flight, Mr. Washington," the driver said, unloading his luggage. Isaiah thanked him and entered the bustling terminal, rolling his carry-on containing the prototype. The airport was crowded with Monday morning business travelers, a sea of suits and briefcases flowing toward security checkpoints. He approached the premium check-in counter where a young woman with a bright smile greeted him. "Good morning, heading to Boston today, Mr. Washington. I see you're in first class. Would you like to check your carry-on?" "No, thank you. I need to keep it with me," Isaiah replied, patting the sleek black bag containing his company's future. After receiving his boarding pass, Isaiah proceeded to the TSA pre-check lane. Despite his status and frequent flyer profile, he was directed to step aside. "Random additional screening, sir," the TSA agent stated flatly. Isaiah had been through this enough times to know there was nothing random about it. He complied without comment, placing his carry-on on the separate table. "What's this device?" the agent asked, pointing at the outline of the prototype on the scanner. "Medical technology. It's a prototype for a portable dialysis machine my company has developed," Isaiah explained calmly. The agent's eyebrows raised skeptically. "Your company?" "Yes, I'm the CEO of Meditech Innovations." Isaiah handed over his business card along with his ID. The agent examined both his expression, making it clear he was struggling to reconcile the black man standing before him with the title on the card. Meanwhile, another agent roughly handled the prototype, causing Isaiah's heart to race. "Careful with that, please. It's sensitive medical equipment," he said, maintaining a deliberately measured tone. He'd learned early in his career that displaying any emotion, particularly frustration, would be interpreted as aggression. After 15 minutes of additional screening while other travelers in the pre-check lane moved swiftly through, Isaiah was finally cleared. He gathered his belongings, straightened his tie, and headed toward the premium airline lounge to review his presentation one final time before boarding. At the lounge entrance, a blonde attendant intercepted him before he could scan his membership card. "Excuse me, sir. This is the premium members lounge," she stated, emphasizing the word premium as though it were a foreign concept to him. "Yes, I'm aware," Isaiah replied, producing his platinum membership card. "I've been a member for 8 years. She examined the card with unusual scrutiny before reluctantly stepping aside. "Very well. Enjoy your stay, Mr. Washington." Inside the lounge, Isaiah found a quiet corner and opened his laptop. As he connected to the Wi-Fi, he noticed a man nodding at him from across the room. Warren Taylor, CFO of a national retail chain, and one of the few other black executives he occasionally encountered in airport lounges. Warren made his way over and took the seat beside Isaiah. "Another random screening?" Warren asked with a knowing smile. Isaiah chuckled. "Of course. You too. Always. Heading to Boston. Yes, investor meeting. You. Chicago. Board presentation." Warren glanced around the lounge. "I see Rebecca Morris is working your flight." Isaiah followed Warren's gaze to see a flight attendant in her mid-50s with short blonde hair speaking animatedly to another crew member by the coffee station. "Is that a problem?" Isaiah asked. Warren lowered his voice. "Let's just say she has a reputation among executives of color. Last month she made a scene when my colleague Darius tried to sit in first class. Kept asking to see his boarding pass, then suggested he was in the wrong seat even after he showed it to her." Isaiah frowned. "That's ridiculous." "That's flying while black," Warren replied with resignation. "Just be prepared. Document everything if she starts anything." As if sensing she was being discussed, Rebecca glanced over at them with a look of distaste, before turning back to her colleague, whispering something that made the other flight attendant look uncomfortable. Isaiah heard fragments of her complaint. "Tired of these people getting upgraded, who don't know how to behave in first class." Warren shook his head slightly. "See what I mean?" Isaiah absorbed this information but refused to let it distract him from his focus. "Thanks for the heads up. I'll be fine." They exchanged contact information before Warren headed to his gate. Isaiah returned to reviewing his presentation, making mental notes of key points to emphasize with the investors. His phone buzzed with a text from Zoe. "Just heard Harper & Blackwell is also meeting with Westfield Medical tomorrow. They're pitching a competing device. Today's meeting is more crucial than ever." Isaiah felt his stomach tighten. Westfield Medical was their largest competitor, with deeper pockets and established relationships with major hospital chains. If they secured Harper and Blackwell's backing first, Meditech's path to going public would be significantly more difficult. He texted back, "Thanks for the intel. We'll make sure we stand out." With 20 minutes until boarding, Isaiah packed up his materials and headed to the gate, mentally recalibrating his presentation to address the competitive threat. The stakes had just gotten higher, and he couldn't afford any distractions, especially not from a prejudiced flight attendant. As he approached Gate A22, the boarding process was just beginning. He took a deep breath, straightened his shoulders, and prepared for what should have been a routine first-class boarding experience. Instead, he was walking into a confrontation that would soon capture national attention. "Now, boarding our first-class passengers for Flight 1382 to Boston," the gate agent announced through the PA system. Isaiah joined the priority boarding line business card in hand, along with his boarding pass, a habit he'd developed after too many challenges about whether he belonged in the first-class lane. As he approached the gate, he noticed Rebecca Morris, the flight attendant Warren, had warned him about standing at the aircraft door checking boarding passes. Her welcoming smile visibly faltered when Isaiah stepped forward. "Boarding pass, please," she said, her tone noticeably cooler than it had been with the elderly white couple who had boarded just before him. Isaiah handed over his boarding pass and premium member card. Rebecca studied them with unusual scrutiny, turning the boarding pass over as if checking for counterfeit markings. "Is there a problem?" Isaiah asked calmly. "No," she replied curtly. "First time in first class." The implication was clear, but Isaiah maintained his professional demeanor. "No, I fly this route frequently." Rebecca returned his documents without further comment, but didn't offer the customary welcome aboard she'd extended to other passengers. Isaiah made his way down the jet bridge, already feeling the familiar weight of being treated differently. As he stepped onto the plane, Rebecca had hurried ahead to the first-class cabin, where she was warmly greeting other passengers and helping them store luggage. When Isaiah approached his window seat in row 2, she deliberately turned her attention to adjusting items in the galley. An older white businessman in an ill-fitting suit approached, and Rebecca immediately brightened. "Good morning, sir. Let me take your coat," she offered, reaching out helpfully. The contrast was stark. Isaiah placed his suit jacket in the overhead bin himself and settled into his seat, opening his phone to check emails. A text from Zoe appeared. "Breaking news. Westfield just announced their prototype failed FDA preliminary testing. You're in the clear for the Harper and Blackwell meeting, but they'll be looking for assurances about our FDA pathway. I've updated the presentation with our latest test results." Isaiah felt a moment of relief mixed with renewed pressure. The FDA pathway had always been Meditech's advantage, their rigorous testing protocols exceeding industry standards. He needed to emphasize this point in his presentation, which meant ensuring the prototype arrived safely for demonstration. As the cabin filled, Rebecca continued her selective customer service, offering pre-departure beverages to everyone in first class except Isaiah. When he politely raised his hand to request water, she pretended not to notice. "Excuse me," Isaiah finally said as she passed by. "Could I get some water, please?" Rebecca paused, her expression tightening. "We're very busy with boarding right now. I'll get to you when I can." She immediately turned to the white passenger across the aisle. "More champagne, sir." Isaiah exchanged glances with the middle-aged Asian American woman seated next to him, who raised her eyebrows slightly in recognition of what was happening. He gave her a small smile and returned to reviewing his presentation notes, choosing not to escalate the situation. The final boarding announcement came, and Isaiah stood to place his carry-on in the overhead bin. The prototype needed to remain secure but accessible, as he planned to review some technical specifications during the flight. As he lifted his bag, Rebecca abruptly stepped forward. "That bin is reserved," she stated loudly. Isaiah paused, confused. "Reserved? I didn't see any markings." "It's for our regular customers," she said, emphasizing regular, while reaching for the bin's door. "I'm in seat 2A," Isaiah replied calmly, showing his boarding pass again. "This is my assigned bin." Rebecca's expression hardened. "We need to ensure there's space for everyone. Your bag will need to go further back." Before Isaiah could respond, the businessman who had boarded after him approached carrying a worn leather briefcase and a golf magazine. "Need a spot for my bag," he announced, hardly looking at the flight attendant. Rebecca's demeanor transformed instantly. "Of course, sir, let me help you with that." She took his briefcase and placed it precisely where she had just prevented Isaiah from using, then smiled warmly. "There you go, Mr. Johnson. Can I get you anything else before takeoff?" The double standard was now impossible to ignore. Several passengers had noticed the exchange, including the woman next to Isaiah who had closed her book to watch the situation unfold. Isaiah took a controlled breath. "Miss Morris," he said, reading her name tag. "I need my bag to remain accessible during the flight. It contains medical equipment I'll be presenting at a business meeting." "Medical equipment should have been declared at the gate," she replied dismissively. "And how do you know my name?" "It's on your name tag," Isaiah pointed out, keeping his voice deliberately level. "And I did declare it. The gate agent said it was fine to keep with me." Rebecca crossed her arms. "Well, I'm the lead flight attendant, and I'm telling you the overhead bins in first class are full." Isaiah glanced at the clearly empty space above his seat, but decided to try one more reasonable approach. "I understand you're doing your job," he said, "but there is clearly space available, and I'm a first-class passenger. I need to keep this bag with me because it contains valuable prototype medical equipment." The businessman who had been given the space looked up from his magazine, frowning slightly at the growing tension. A few passengers had begun to notice the exchange, some watching curiously, while others pretended not to hear. Rebecca's face flushed. "Are you telling me how to do my job now?" Isaiah remained calm. "Not at all. I'm simply requesting the same courtesy extended to other passengers. The flight is fully boarded. Your bag needs to go in the rear overhead bins or be checked," Rebecca insisted, her voice rising. The Asian American woman beside Isaiah spoke up. "There's clearly space right here. I don't understand the problem." Rebecca shot her a cold look before turning back to Isaiah. "Sir, you're delaying our departure. Either move your bag to the rear of the aircraft or we'll need to check it." Isaiah knew he couldn't allow the prototype to be checked. The risk of damage was too great. But he also recognized the dangerous territory he was entering. As a black man being publicly confronted by a white woman, any display of frustration could be weaponized against him. "I'll find space for it myself. Thank you," he said, turning to move toward the rear of first class. As he did so, Rebecca's hand shot out toward his carry-on, and what happened next would set in motion events that would change both their lives forever. "Don't touch that bag." Isaiah's voice came out sharper than intended as Rebecca reached for his carry-on containing the $1 million prototype. The first-class cabin fell silent. All eyes turned toward them. "Excuse me," Rebecca's voice rose with indignation. "Are you raising your voice at me?" Isaiah took a steadying breath. "I apologize if I sounded sharp, but this bag contains sensitive medical equipment. Please don't handle it roughly." "I am doing my job," Rebecca retorted. "You're being disruptive and difficult. This is exactly why some people shouldn't be in first class." The implication hung in the air. A few passengers exchanged uncomfortable glances. The Asian American woman beside Isaiah's seat had begun recording discreetly with her phone. "What exactly do you mean by some people?" Isaiah asked quietly. Rebecca ignored the question. "Your bag needs to go in the back or be gate checked. That's final." She reached for the bag again. "Miss Morris, please stop. I've already shown you my boarding pass for this seat, and there is clearly space in this bin." Isaiah gestured to the half-empty compartment above him. "I don't understand why you're treating me differently from the other passengers." "I'm not treating you any differently," she snapped, though everyone watching knew otherwise. A white businessman across the aisle cleared his throat. "Actually, you helped me put my bag in that exact bin just minutes ago." Rebecca flushed red. "That's completely different." He was being disruptive. "I haven't raised my voice or been disruptive," Isaiah stated calmly. "I'm simply requesting the same treatment as other first-class passengers." Rebecca's hand suddenly shot out, grabbing Isaiah's carry-on with surprising force. The unexpected movement caused Isaiah to lose his grip. As he tried to regain control of the bag, the momentum pulled him forward, his arm brushing against Rebecca's shoulder. "He touched me!" she shrieked, recoiling dramatically. "Did you all see that he just assaulted me?" The accusation hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Isaiah stood frozen, acutely aware of how this could escalate. As a black man being accused of assaulting a white woman, he knew the potential consequences regardless of the truth. "That is absolutely false," he stated firmly. "I did not touch you intentionally. You pulled my bag and I lost my balance." While they were arguing, Rebecca maintained her grip on the carry-on. In a sudden movement that shocked everyone watching, she yanked it from Isaiah's grasp and forcefully kicked it down the aisle of the first-class cabin. The expensive bag tumbled down the aisle, coming to rest near the galley. Isaiah felt a wave of panic. The prototype inside represented years of research and development, not to mention the future of his company. "My prototype," he exclaimed, moving quickly to retrieve it. "Stay where you are," Rebecca demanded. "I'm calling the captain. You're being removed from this flight for assaulting a crew member." The Asian American woman stood up. "That's ridiculous. He didn't assault anyone. I recorded the whole thing." Other passengers had begun recording too. Isaiah carefully approached his bag, inspecting it for damage. He noticed with dismay that his suit jacket had been torn in the confrontation. At the expensive suit he'd purchased specifically for his investor meeting now had a visible rip along the sleeve. As he knelt to check his prototype, Rebecca stood over him. "You people always think you can do whatever you want. This is what happens when the airline gives away first-class upgrades to people who don't belong here." What do you think about this situation? If you believe Rebecca is clearly discriminating against Isaiah based on race, comment number 1. If you think there's a misunderstanding that could have been resolved differently, comment number 2. If you've ever experienced or witnessed similar treatment while traveling, comment number 3. This story exposes the everyday discrimination many people face. Hit that like button and subscribe to support more stories that shine light on these important issues. Would you have stayed calm like Isaiah did? Or would you have responded differently? How might this situation escalate from here? Let's continue this shocking true story and see what happens next. What's going on here? A tall black flight attendant in his mid-50s approached from the galley, his name tag reading Gerald Reynolds, senior flight attendant. Rebecca immediately turned to him, her demeanor shifting to one of victimhood. "Gerald, this passenger is being aggressive and disruptive. He refused to store his bag properly and then pushed me when I tried to assist him." Gerald looked at Isaiah, who was still standing beside his carry-on in the aisle. "Sir, can you explain what happened?" Before Isaiah could respond, the Asian American woman who had been recording stood up. "That's completely false. I recorded the entire interaction. This gentleman was being perfectly reasonable, and she pointed at. Rebecca was treating him differently from every other passenger. She grabbed his bag and kicked it down the aisle." Several other passengers nodded in agreement. The businessman across the aisle spoke up. "She let me put my bag in the exact overhead bin she told him was reserved. It wasn't right." Gerald's expression remained professional, but his eyes registered understanding. He turned to Isaiah. "May I see your boarding pass, sir?" Isaiah handed it over, along with his company ID card. Gerald's eyes widened slightly as he read the name, Mr. Washington, Isaiah Washington of Meditech Innovations. Isaiah nodded, surprised to be recognized. "I read about your company in Business Insider last month. Your work developing affordable dialysis technology for underserved communities is remarkable." Gerald handed back the documents with newfound respect. "I apologize for this situation. Let me help you with your bag." Rebecca looked confused by the exchange. "You know this man." "Mr. Washington is the CEO of a prominent medical technology company," Gerald explained calmly. "And regardless of his position, every passenger deserves to be treated with respect." Rebecca scoffed. "CEO, please. He probably got the position through some diversity initiative." A collective gasp went through the cabin. The Asian American woman stood up fully. "Excuse me, I'm Professor Kimberly Chen from Harvard Medical School, and I find that comment deeply offensive. This kind of blatant discrimination is exactly what I study in my research on racial bias in service industries." Isaiah remained composed despite the humiliation. "My bag contains a medical prototype I'm presenting to investors in Boston. I need to ensure it hasn't been damaged." Gerald nodded. "Of course, Mr. Washington. Let me assist you." As they carefully examined the bag, Rebecca continued her complaints, seemingly oblivious to how she was incriminating herself. "He doesn't look like a CEO. These people get these affirmative action appointments and then expect special treatment." Gerald's face hardened. "Rebecca, that's enough. Please go to the galley. Now." "I'm the lead flight attendant on this flight," she protested. "You can't." "Captain Hayes is being notified of the situation," Gerald cut her off. "Please wait in the galley until he arrives." The mention of the captain seemed to give Rebecca pause. She retreated to the galley, muttering about following proper procedures. Isaiah carefully opened his carry-on, relieved to find the prototype appeared intact, though he would need to test it thoroughly to be certain. His torn suit jacket was another matter, an unfortunate casualty of the confrontation that couldn't be easily fixed before his meeting. Captain Benjamin Hayes, a distinguished-looking man in his late 50s, emerged from the cockpit. "What's happening here?" he asked, his voice carrying the natural authority of someone used to commanding aircraft. Gerald briefly explained the situation while several passengers chimed in with their observations. The captain turned to Isaiah. "Sir, I understand there was an incident with your luggage. Could I see your identification, please?" Isaiah provided his ID and business cards again. The captain studied them, his expression thoughtful. Meditech Innovations, the company developing portable dialysis machines. Isaiah nodded, wondering how many more times he'd need to verify his identity. "My brother is on dialysis," the captain said, his tone softening slightly. "Your work is important." Rebecca emerged from the galley, confident the captain would support her. "Sir, regardless of who he claims to be, this passenger was disruptive and touched me. That's grounds for removal under FAA regulations." Professor Chen stood again. "That's absolutely false. I have video evidence showing Miss Morris was the aggressor. She physically grabbed his bag and kicked it down the aisle." "I'd like to see that footage," Captain Hayes said. Professor Chen handed over her phone. The captain watched the video, his expression growing increasingly concerned. When it ended, he handed the phone back. "Miss Morris, please return to the galley. I need to make a call." The captain stepped away, phone in hand. The tension in the cabin was palpable as everyone waited. Isaiah took the opportunity to formally introduce himself to Professor Chen. "Thank you for speaking up," he said quietly. "Many people wouldn't have gotten involved." "What happened to you was wrong," she replied, "and unfortunately not uncommon. I've documented hundreds of similar incidents in my research." After several minutes, Captain Hayes returned, his expression grave. He approached Isaiah first. "Mr. Washington, on behalf of the airline, I want to sincerely apologize for this incident. Our Chief of Customer Experience is personally involved now and would like to speak with you. The situation is being addressed." The captain then turned to Rebecca, who had been watching confidently from the galley. "Miss Morris, please gather your personal belongings. Someone from management will meet you upon deplaning." Rebecca's confidence faltered. "What? But I was just following." "This is not up for discussion," Captain Hayes stated firmly. "A replacement flight attendant is already on their way to the aircraft." The implication was clear to everyone watching. Rebecca was being removed from the flight. But what happened next would shock everyone on board. The cabin buzzed with whispered conversations as Captain Hayes returned to the cockpit, presumably to update ground control on the situation. Rebecca stood in the galley, her face flushed with indignation as she made a hurried phone call, likely to her union representative. Gerald, the senior flight attendant, approached Isaiah with sincere regret in his eyes. "Mr. Washington, I cannot apologize enough for what you've experienced today. This is not representative of our airline's values." Isaiah nodded, appreciating the gesture, but still processing the events of the past 20 minutes. "Thank you. I just want to get to Boston for my meeting." The captain has contacted airline headquarters directly. "They're taking this very seriously," Gerald explained, lowering his voice. "Malcolm Reynolds, our Chief of Customer Experience, is being driven to the airport as we speak." Isaiah's eyebrows rose in surprise. "The chief executive is coming to the plane?" "Yes, sir." Apparently, when Captain Hayes mentioned your name and company, Mr. Reynolds recognized it immediately. The revelation was puzzling to Isaiah. While Meditech Innovations had received industry recognition, he wouldn't have expected an airline executive to know his company by name. Meanwhile, Rebecca had finished her phone call and was now demanding to speak with the captain again. "This is ridiculous. I was doing my job. If anyone should be removed from this flight, it's him," she pointed accusingly at Isaiah. Gerald firmly directed her back to the galley. "Rebecca, please wait for Mr. Reynolds. He'll be here shortly." The Asian-American woman, Professor Chen, leaned toward Isaiah. "I've already sent the video to my cloud drive. If you need it for any purpose, I'm happy to share it." "Thank you, Professor." "I appreciate that," Isaiah replied. He checked his watch, calculating whether he could still make his investor meeting if the flight departed soon. Every minute of delay increased the risk that his carefully planned presentation might have to be rescheduled. The businessman across the aisle who had spoken up earlier introduced himself. Tom Bradshaw, from Bradshaw Pharmaceuticals. That prototype you're carrying, is it the portable dialysis unit I read about in MedTech Quarterly? Isaiah nodded, slightly surprised. Yes, it is. We're presenting it to investors today. Impressive technology. My company has been watching your progress. Tom handed over his business card. When you're finished with your current round of funding, give me a call. We might be interested in a partnership. This unexpected networking opportunity reminded Isaiah that even in difficult moments, opportunities could arise. He was exchanging contact information when a commotion at the aircraft door caught everyone's attention. Two individuals in impeccable business attire boarded the plane, a distinguished black man in his early 60s and a younger black woman carrying a leather portfolio. The man's presence commanded immediate attention as he scanned the cabin and located Isaiah. Mr. Washington, he approached, extending his hand. Malcolm Reynolds, Chief of Customer Experience for Atlantic Airways. This is Amara Johnson, our legal counsel. Isaiah stood to shake his hand, aware that every passenger was watching this unusual development. Mr. Reynolds, I appreciate you coming personally, but I'm concerned about making my meeting in Boston. Is there any way we can resolve this quickly? Malcolm nodded sympathetically. We'll have you on your way very shortly. First, I want to personally apologize for what happened today. There is absolutely no excuse for how you were treated. Rebecca pushed forward from the galley. Mr. Reynolds, before you make any judgments, I need to explain my side of the story. This passenger was being difficult about baggage procedures. Malcolm raised his hand, stopping her mid-sentence. Miss Morris, I'll speak with you momentarily. His tone was professional, but left no room for argument. He turned back to Isaiah. Mr. Washington, may I have a word in private? They stepped into a quieter area near the front galley. Amara Johnson joined them, opening her portfolio. Mr. Washington, your company Meditech Innovations is currently in negotiations with our airline for a significant contract. Is that correct? Malcolm asked quietly. Isaiah was surprised by the question. Yes, but how did you? Malcolm produced a letter from inside his suit jacket. This came across my desk last week for final approval. Your company is providing emergency medical equipment for our entire fleet, a contract worth approximately $50 million. Isaiah recognized the document, the final contract draft his legal team had been finalizing. He hadn't realized how far along the process was, as his CFO, Martin, had been handling most of the negotiations. Our CEO has been personally invested in this partnership, Malcolm continued. When Captain Hayes mentioned your name, it immediately registered. We've been pursuing your business for months. Amara spoke up. Mr. Washington, this incident will be thoroughly investigated. We'd like to offer you our sincere apologies and assurances that appropriate action will be taken. Isaiah appreciated their professionalism, but was increasingly aware of the time. I understand and I appreciate your response. My main concern right now is getting to Boston for my investor meeting. Of course, Malcolm nodded. We'll be departing shortly, but first we need to address Miss Morris's behavior. He turned to Amara. Do you have her file? Amara produced a tablet and pulled up a personnel record. Miss Morris has 3 previous complaints about discriminatory behavior in the past 18 months. All were filed by passengers of color in premium cabins. She received warnings, but no formal disciplinary action. Malcolm's expression darkened. That ends today. They returned to the main cabin, where Rebecca was waiting with growing anxiety. Malcolm gestured for her to join them near the front of the cabin. Miss Morris, I've reviewed the video evidence and witness statements regarding your interaction with Mr. Washington, Malcolm stated formally. Additionally, I've been briefed on your previous behavioral complaints. Rebecca's face paled. Those were misunderstandings. Your actions today were clearly discriminatory, unprofessional, and directly violated our company's core values and policies, Malcolm continued. You physically mishandled a passenger's property, made racially charged remarks, and falsely accused him of assault. The cabin had grown silent as passengers strained to hear the exchange. Based on these actions and your previous record, Atlantic Airways is terminating your employment, effective immediately. Malcolm's voice was firm, but not unkind. Please gather your personal belongings. Security will escort you from the aircraft. Rebecca's mouth fell open in shock. You're firing me? Here? Now you can't do that. I have rights. The union will. Miss Morris Amara interjected. Your actions were captured on multiple recordings and witnessed by dozens of passengers. The union has already been notified of the termination and provided with the evidence. You're welcome to pursue whatever grievance process you believe is appropriate, but the decision is final. Rebecca's shock transformed into outrage. This is reverse discrimination. You're only doing this because he's black too. She gestured wildly at Malcolm. A security officer had appeared at the aircraft door. Malcolm simply nodded toward him. Please escort Miss Morris off the aircraft. As Rebecca was led away, still protesting loudly, the tension in the cabin finally began to dissipate. Several passengers broke into spontaneous applause, which Malcolm quickly discouraged with a raised hand. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Atlantic Airways, I apologize for the delay and the unfortunate incident you've witnessed. We'll be bringing in a replacement flight attendant momentarily, and your flight to Boston will depart shortly. Thank you for your patience and understanding. As the executives prepared to leave, Malcolm turned to Isaiah one last time. Mr. Washington, we value your business, and more importantly, we value you as a customer. I hope today's response demonstrates our commitment to addressing discrimination swiftly and decisively. Isaiah nodded appreciatively. It does, Mr. Reynolds. Thank you. As Malcolm and Amara departed, Isaiah returned to his seat, still processing what had just transpired. The flight would soon depart, and he would make his investor meeting in Boston. But the incident and its extraordinary resolution had already set in motion consequences that would extend far beyond this Monday morning flight. Rebecca Morris stood in stunned disbelief at the front of the first-class cabin, her face cycling through expressions of shock, anger, and fear as the reality of her situation sank in. You can't fire me on the spot like this, she protested, her voice rising. I've been with this airline for 22 years. Malcolm Reynolds remained composed, his voice level, but carrying clearly throughout the now silent cabin. Miss Morris, your length of service makes your behavior today even more disappointing. You've had ample time to understand our company values and policies. Amara Johnson, the airline's legal counsel, stepped forward with clinical precision. Your employment contract specifically outlines discriminatory behavior as grounds for immediate termination. The evidence in this case is unambiguous. Evidence? What evidence? Rebecca scoffed, his word against mine. Malcolm glanced around the cabin where at least a dozen passengers held up smartphones. I count at least 12 video recordings of the incident. Miss Morris. Additionally, we have witness statements from passengers and crew members. He held up his tablet displaying Professor Chen's recording, which clearly showed Rebecca grabbing Isaiah's bag and kicking it down the aisle while making discriminatory comments. Furthermore, Malcolm continued, I've reviewed your personnel file during my drive to the airport. This isn't an isolated incident. Rebecca's face paled. Those other complaints were all misunderstandings. 3 separate complaints in 18 months, all from passengers of color in premium cabins, all describing similar behavior. Malcolm replied, You received warnings each time, yet your behavior has continued. The security officer who had boarded the plane now stood patiently by the door, waiting to escort Rebecca off. She looked around desperately for allies, but found none. Even the other flight attendants kept their distance, their expressions carefully neutral. "This is about the contract, isn't it?" Rebecca suddenly exclaimed, pointing at Isaiah. "You're only doing this because his company is worth money to the airline." Malcolm's expression hardened. "Miss Morris, while Mr. Washington's company does indeed have a business relationship with our airline, we would take the exact same action regardless of who was subjected to this treatment. Discrimination has no place at Atlantic Airways, whether the target is a CEO or any other passenger." Amara stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Rebecca, I strongly advise you not to make additional statements that could further complicate your situation. You have the right to pursue grievance procedures through proper channels, but continuing this scene will not help your case." Rebecca looked from Amara to Malcolm, then to Isaiah, who had remained quietly dignified throughout the confrontation. Something in his calm demeanor seemed to infuriate her further. "You people always stick together," she hissed. "This is reverse racism. I'm being fired for being white." A collective gasp went through the cabin. Even passengers who had been sympathetic to Rebecca's predicament recoiled at the blatantly racist remark. Malcolm closed his eyes briefly, as if pained by the comment. "Miss Morris, that statement alone would be grounds for termination," he said quietly. "Officer, please escort Miss Morris from the aircraft immediately." The security officer stepped forward. "Ma'am, I need you to come with me now." Rebecca clutched her handbag to her chest, tears of anger welling in her eyes. "I'm calling my lawyer. I'm calling the media. Everyone will know how this airline treats its loyal employees." "That is your right," Malcolm replied evenly, "and we'll address those claims through appropriate channels. For now, this flight needs to depart, and these passengers deserve to complete their journey without further disruption." As a security officer gently but firmly guided Rebecca toward the exit, she turned for one last outburst. "You'll regret this, all of you." Her gaze swept the cabin before landing on Isaiah. "Especially you." The threat hung in the air as she was finally escorted from the plane. As she disappeared down the jet bridge, a replacement flight attendant, a young Hispanic woman named Carmen, according to her name tag, boarded with a professional smile, quickly taking position to prepare for departure. Malcolm turned to address the cabin. "Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Atlantic Airways, I want to sincerely apologize for this incident and the resulting delay. We're committed to creating a respectful environment for all our passengers and employees. Your flight will be departing shortly." He turned to Isaiah, extending his hand. "Mr. Washington, again, my deepest apologies for what you experienced today. I'll be in touch regarding the contract between our companies, but please know that today's response was about doing what's right, not about business relationships." Isaiah shook his hand. "I appreciate that, Mr. Reynolds." As Malcolm and Amara prepared to depart, Captain Hayes emerged from the cockpit for a brief conversation. After they left, he addressed the passengers. "Folks, we'll be departing in approximately 5 minutes. Flight time to Boston will be 2 hours and 17 minutes. Again, we apologize for the delay and thank you for your patience." The normal bustle of pre-departure activity resumed. Carmen efficiently checked seatbelts and overhead bins, her professionalism a stark contrast to Rebecca's behavior. Isaiah secured his carry-on in the overhead bin, the same one Rebecca had insisted was reserved, and settled back into his seat. Professor Chen leaned over. "That was something I've never seen before: immediate accountability for discriminatory behavior. Usually companies drag their feet or issue empty apologies." Isaiah nodded thoughtfully. "It was surprising, though I suspect my company's business relationship with the airline expedited things." "Perhaps," she acknowledged, "but the evidence was overwhelming. Those videos will likely end up online regardless." As if on cue, Isaiah's phone buzzed with multiple notifications. The first was from Zoe. "Are you okay? Videos of an incident on your flight are already trending on Twitter. Number Flyin' While Black." Isaiah sighed, realizing this private humiliation was about to become very public. As the plane finally pushed back from the gate, he couldn't help but wonder how this unexpected detour would affect his carefully planned day and whether the aftermath would follow him all the way to Boston and beyond. The Airbus, a 320, climbed steadily through the cloud cover over Atlanta, leaving behind the drama that had delayed its departure. Inside the cabin, a new atmosphere had taken hold, one of subdued conversation, punctuated by the occasional ping of incoming messages as passengers connected to the in-flight Wi-Fi. Isaiah gazed out the window at the cotton-like clouds below, still processing the morning's events. His phone had been buzzing continuously since takeoff, but he'd kept it in airplane mode, needing a moment of peace before diving into what he suspected would be a social media firestorm. Captain Hayes' voice came over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, we've reached our cruising altitude of 36000 feet. I've turned off the fasten seatbelt sign, though we recommend keeping your seatbelt fastened while seated. Our flight attendants will begin service shortly." The new lead flight attendant, Carmen, approached Isaiah's seat with a genuinely warm smile. "Mr. Washington, Captain Hayes asked me to personally ensure you have everything you need during the flight. Can I bring you anything?" "Just water for now." "Thank you," Isaiah replied, appreciating the professional courtesy. "Of course, and when you're ready, Captain Hayes would like to speak with you briefly. No rush at all, whenever it's convenient for you." As Carmen moved on to serve other passengers, Professor Chen turned to Isaiah. "You've become a bit of a celebrity on this flight," she observed. Isaiah smiled wryly. "Not the kind of attention I was looking for today." "I understand. I'm Dr. Kimberly Chen, by the way. I teach at Harvard Medical School, specializing in healthcare disparities and bias in medical settings." "Isaiah Washington, Meditech Innovations," he replied, extending his hand. "Your research sounds directly relevant to our work." "Yes, I've actually followed your company's development. Your portable dialysis unit could significantly impact the communities I study." She paused thoughtfully. "Would you mind if I asked you a professional question?" "Not at all. As a Black CEO in medical technology, how often do you encounter the kind of bias we witness today?" Isaiah considered the question carefully. "In various forms, almost daily. That blatant. Less frequently, but often enough that I'm never truly surprised when it happens." Their conversation was interrupted by the businessman across the aisle who leaned over with an outstretched hand. "Tom Hensley, Apex Pharmaceuticals." "Sorry to interrupt, but I wanted to say what happened earlier was completely unacceptable. And professionally speaking, I've been following your company's innovations with great interest." Soon, several other first-class passengers joined the conversation, many expressing support, while others shared their own experiences with discrimination. What began as a distressing incident had transformed into an impromptu networking session. A middle-aged woman 2 rows ahead turned around. "My sister is on dialysis in rural Mississippi, has to drive 2 hours to the nearest center 3 times a week. If your machine could help people like her." Isaiah found himself explaining Meditech's mission to bring affordable medical technology to underserved communities. The genuine interest from his fellow passengers provided a welcome distraction from the morning's events. After about 30 minutes, Isaiah excused himself to visit the cockpit as Captain Hayes had requested. He activated his phone first, wincing at the barrage of notifications. 28 text messages from Zoe, 43 email alerts, 17 missed calls, hundreds of social media notifications. The most recent text from Zoe read, "Call me as soon as possible. Video at 2M views and climbing. Number flying while black, trending nationally. CNN and MSNBC requesting statements. Harper and Blackwell knows about incident. CEO personally called to confirm meeting still on." Isaiah took a deep breath before opening Twitter. The hashtag number #FlyingWhileBlack was indeed trending with multiple videos of the incident from different angles. One particularly clear recording posted by a passenger named a traveling professor, likely Professor Chen, had been viewed over 2 million times and shared by several celebrities and civil rights organizations. The airline was already facing a backlash, though many commenters praised the swift response of firing Rebecca on the spot. Isaiah's name and company were being mentioned thousands of times per hour, with Meditech's stock price showing an unexpected 3% jump in pre-market trading. Before he could digest it all, Carmen approached. "Mr. Washington, Captain Hayes is ready whenever you are." In the cockpit, Captain Hayes greeted him with a firm handshake. "Mr. Washington, thank you for taking the time. I wanted to personally apologize again for what happened." "I appreciate that, Captain. Your intervention helped resolve the situation." Hayes nodded soberly. "I've been flying for 27 years. Sadly, I've seen similar incidents before, though rarely so blatant." He paused. "The company made the right call today. That behavior has no place in aviation or anywhere else." They spoke briefly about Isaiah's company and the portable dialysis machine. Hayes shared that his brother relied on dialysis, giving him personal insight into how transformative Meditech's technology could be. As Isaiah returned to his seat, he noticed several passengers quickly looking away, the universal sign that they'd been discussing him. Professor Chen smiled sympathetically. "Your incident has officially gone viral," she informed him. "The airline stock is down, but interestingly, your company's pre-market trading is up significantly." Isaiah checked his phone again to find a new message from Zoe Harper and Blackwell principals watching the videos. "They're impressed with your composure. Meeting's still on, but they want to discuss recent events as well as the technology. Call when you can." For the remainder of the flight, Isaiah alternated between preparing for his investor meeting and managing the unexpected media situation with Zoe's help. They drafted a brief, dignified statement that acknowledged the incident without inflaming tensions further. By the time the plane began its descent into Boston Logan International, the story had evolved beyond a single incident of discrimination into a broader conversation about race, privilege, and corporate accountability. CNN was reporting that Rebecca Morris had already given an interview to a right-wing news outlet claiming she was the victim of cancel culture and reverse discrimination. Meanwhile, Atlantic Airways had issued a formal statement condemning discrimination and announcing a comprehensive review of their training procedures. Their stock had stabilized somewhat after the initial drop. As the wheels touched down in Boston, Isaiah's phone rang with a call from his mother. "Isaiah, baby. Are you okay? I just saw you on the news." "I'm fine, Mom," he assured her, realizing that the incident had now reached beyond social media into mainstream news. Just a difficult situation that got resolved. "Well, you handled it with dignity, just like your father taught you. He would be proud." Her voice carried both concern and fierce pride. "Don't let this distract you from your meeting. You've worked too hard to get here." Her words centered him. Beyond the viral videos and media frenzy was the reality of why he'd come to Boston to secure funding that would help bring life-saving technology to people who needed it most. As the plane taxied to the gate, Isaiah noticed a crowd of people with cameras near the terminal windows. Carmen approached one final time. "Mr. Washington, there appear to be news crews waiting at the gate. Captain Hayes has arranged for you to deplane first and exit through the service door if you prefer to avoid them." Isaiah considered the offer, then shook his head. "Thank you, but that won't be necessary. I have nothing to hide." Carmen nodded respectfully. "For what it's worth, sir, what happened today was wrong, and the crew is unanimous in our support for how it was handled." As the seatbelt sign dinged off, Isaiah gathered his belongings, including the prototype that had inadvertently set the day's events in motion. Professor Chen handed him her business card. "If you ever want to discuss healthcare disparities and how your technology might address them, please call me. and good luck with your investors today." Isaiah thanked her and prepared to face the waiting cameras, knowing that the next few hours would be crucial not just for his company, but potentially for broader conversations about race in America. The investor meeting now carried additional weight, a chance to transform an ugly incident into meaningful progress, both for Meditech and perhaps for others who would face similar situations in the future. As he walked toward the aircraft door, Isaiah straightened his torn suit jacket, took a deep breath, and prepared to step into the spotlight he never sought, but now couldn't avoid. 3 hours after landing in Boston, Isaiah Washington stood before the floor-to-ceiling windows in Harper and Blackwell's 37th floor conference room. The city sprawled below, bathed in afternoon sunlight. Behind him, 4 investment partners murmured among themselves, reviewing the presentation he had just delivered. The meeting had not gone as planned. It had gone better. When Isaiah arrived, still rattled from the morning's events and the media gauntlet he'd navigated at the airport, he found the investment team already discussing the viral videos of his confrontation with Rebecca Morris. Mr. Washington, Patricia Harper, the firm's founding partner, had greeted him. "We've all seen what happened on your flight today. Before we discuss your technology, we'd like to hear your perspective on the incident." Rather than launching into his carefully rehearsed pitch about Meditech's revolutionary dialysis device, Isaiah found himself speaking candidly about his experiences as a Black executive in America. Constant need to prove himself and the exhausting vigilance required to navigate predominantly white spaces without being perceived as threatening or angry. What you saw in that video happens in boardrooms, in stores, in hospitals, and yes, on planes, he explained. The only difference is that today, it was caught on camera. Instead of making the investors uncomfortable, his honesty seemed to resonate deeply. Isaiah then pivoted to explain how these experiences had directly informed Meditech's mission. "I founded this company because I saw firsthand how healthcare disparities affect communities of color and low-income areas. My grandmother died of kidney failure in rural Georgia because she couldn't access regular dialysis. The nearest center was 60 miles away, and she didn't have reliable transportation." He unveiled the prototype, thankfully undamaged despite Rebecca's rough handling, and demonstrated how it could operate on standard household power or even a car battery in emergency situations. This isn't just about convenience, it's about survival. In the United States today, Black Americans are 3 times more likely to suffer kidney failure than white Americans, yet they face more barriers to treatment. Our technology can change that equation. The investors asked pointed, thoughtful questions, not just about the technology and market potential, but about Isaiah's vision for addressing systemic healthcare inequities. The conversation evolved beyond a typical investment pitch into a meaningful discussion about using business as a force for social change. Now, as the partners deliberated, Isaiah gazed at Boston Harbor in the distance, reflecting on how dramatically the day had veered from his expectations. Mr. Washington, Patricia Harper's voice drew him back to the present. "We've reached a decision." Isaiah turned to face the investors, maintaining the composed demeanor that had served him well during the morning's confrontation. "We're prepared to offer Meditech Innovations $50 million in Series B, funding $20 million more than you requested." Isaiah blinked in surprise. "That's considerably more than we discussed." "Yes," Harper nodded. "After seeing your technology and understanding your vision, we believe your company is uniquely positioned at the intersection of innovation and social impact. The additional capital will accelerate your FDA approval process and production scaling." Michael Blackwell, the other founding partner, added, "And frankly, the composure you demonstrated this morning convinced us you have the leadership qualities needed to guide a company through the challenges of rapid growth." Not many CEOs could handle that situation with such dignity. The investment team outlined terms that were more favorable than Isaiah had dared hope for, including provisions for maintaining Meditech's commitment to serving underserved communities. As the meeting concluded, Patricia walked Isaiah to the elevator. "I should mention that my mother is on dialysis," she said quietly. "When your device receives FDA approval, I'd like her to be among the first to try it." Isaiah nodded, recognizing that beyond the business opportunity, his work touched people's lives in deeply personal ways. "I'll make sure of it." Outside the Harper and Blackwell building, Isaiah finally had a moment to check his phone again. The situation had evolved dramatically during his meeting. A new text from Zoe Atlantic Airways CEO issued public apology, announced comprehensive anti-bias training program for all staff. Stock recovering. CNN wants to interview you tonight. Also, Rebecca gave inflammatory interview to Newsmax, claiming discrimination against white employees, backfiring badly for her. How did meeting go? Another from his CFO, Martin Stock, up 12%. What happened in Boston? And a surprising email from Malcolm Reynolds at Atlantic Airways, Mr. Washington. In addition to addressing the incident on your flight, we'd like to discuss expanding our contract to include your dialysis units in our emergency medical kits. Once FDA approved, please call when convenient. As Isaiah scrolled through the messages, a young black boy around 10 years old approached with his mother. "Excuse me," the mother said hesitantly. "Are you Mr. Washington from the airplane video? My son recognized you." Isaiah smiled warmly. "Yes, that's me. I want to be a doctor and invent things like you," the boy said, his eyes bright with admiration. "Mom showed me your company website. Your machines are going to help people like my uncle." Touched by the encounter, Isaiah reached into his pocket and handed the boy one of his business cards. "What's your name?" "Gemma, sir." Isaiah took the card back briefly and wrote on the back, "First class is where you belong. Dream big, Jamal." He returned it to the awestruck boy. "When you finish medical school, call me. Meditech might have a position for you." As Jamal and his mother walked away, Isaiah felt a renewed sense of purpose. What had begun as a humiliating incident had transformed into an unexpected platform, a chance to speak about issues that usually remained in the shadows and to inspire the next generation. 6 months later, Isaiah stood on the balcony of the New York Stock Exchange surrounded by his executive team. Below them, traders buzzed with excitement as Meditech Innovations prepared to go public in what financial analysts were calling one of the most anticipated healthcare IPOs of the year. The company had experienced a whirlwind half-year since the incident on that Atlanta flight. The portable dialysis unit had received expedited FDA approval. Atlantic Airways had not only expanded their contract, but had also featured Isaiah in their new diversity and inclusion campaign. Rebecca Morris had faded from public attention after her attempts to portray herself as a victim backfired. Most meaningfully, Isaiah had established the First Class Future Foundation, providing scholarships and mentorship to minority students pursuing careers in healthcare technology. The first recipient had been Jamal the boy from Boston. As the opening bell rang and Meditech's stock began trading at nearly double the initial offering price, Isaiah thought about how a moment of discrimination had ultimately amplified his company's mission. The journey hadn't been easy, but it had reinforced his belief that dignity in the face of prejudice was not just a personal choice. It could be a powerful catalyst for change. Later that evening, Isaiah boarded another first-class flight, this time to Los Angeles for interviews about Meditech's successful IPO. As he settled into his seat, a diverse flight crew welcomed him warmly. The lead flight attendant, an older black woman, smiled with recognition. "It's an honor to have you aboard, Mr. Washington," she said. "My nephew just received one of your foundation's scholarships. You're changing lives in more ways than you know." As the plane prepared for takeoff, Isaiah noticed a young black girl in the first row, watching him curiously. Her mother whispered something in her ear, and the girl's eyes widened with recognition. Isaiah smiled and gave her a small wave, remembering his mother's words during that chaotic day in Boston. "You handled it with dignity." just like your father taught you. Some battles couldn't be won in the moment they occurred, but by maintaining his composure and focusing on his greater purpose, Isaiah had transformed an ugly incident into a platform for meaningful change, both for himself and for those who would follow in his path. Isaiah Washington's story teaches us powerful lessons about dignity in the face of discrimination. When confronted with prejudice, his composed response ultimately proved more effective than any emotional reaction could have been. By maintaining his professionalism, he not only protected his immediate interests, but created space for allies to step forward and for justice to unfold. The incident reminds us that documentation is crucial. Without those recordings, the outcome might have been very different. Most importantly, Isaiah transformed a moment of humiliation into a platform for positive change, using his visibility to create opportunities for others who would follow in his footsteps. His experience shows that while we cannot control how others treat us, we can control our responses. Sometimes, maintaining dignity isn't just about personal pride. It becomes a powerful catalyst for systemic change that benefits many. What would you have done in Isaiah's situation? Would you have maintained your composure or responded differently? Comment below with your thoughts on how to handle discrimination when you encounter it. Have you ever witnessed discrimination in a public setting? If this story touched you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more powerful stories about overcoming adversity. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this message of dignity and perseverance in the face of prejudice. Thank you for watching, and remember, sometimes our most difficult moments become our most powerful opportunities for positive change.